Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa ta'min bil khair. Today's lesson, inshallah, is very, very important lesson. And it will not only change your experience of learning Arabic, but also it will enhance your understanding of the Quran to a greater extent, inshallah. As we remember that in the previous lesson, we started from al-i'rabu, and we know that it means the case endings. And when we talk about the case endings, that means a noun can be marfu' or mansub or majroor. Now, when you look at this sentence, we have here, and today we will discuss about the function of the case endings. As in the previous lesson, we discussed only about the case endings, but today we will see what's the function of the case endings. That's very important. So when we see here, Sa'ada Zaidun Hamidan. So what do you think is the case ending of Zaidun? As we can see over here that it has Dhammatan. So that means Zaidun is marfu'. And when we talk about Hamidan, as we know, it has Fathatan. So that means it is mansubun. Excellent. So when we say Sa'ada Zaidun Hamidan, and now, until now, we only know the status of Zaidun, and we know that Zaidun is marfu, and we know the status of Hamidan, and we know that Hamidan is mansub. But maybe we are not sure about the meaning. But once we look at the meaning, now we can see over here that Zaid helped Hamid. So, and when we look at the English sentence, we can see that Zaid is basically the subject, the doer of the action, and Hamid is the receiver of the action. So now, as we can see over here, when the noun is marfu', it is the doer of the action, and when noun is mansub, it is the receiver of the action, and it is restricted to the sentence that starts with a verb. We call this verbal sentence. And now we see here, Zaidun is the doer of the action, and Hamidan, as we can see over here, is the receiver of the action. And how do we know that? As of now, we know that Zaidun is marfu because it has Dhammatan, and Hamidan is mansub because it has Fathatan. Now, if we look at this sentence, it looks like similar kind of sentence, but now, do you see any difference over here? Now we can see it says Sa'ada Hamidun Zaidan. Now the position of Hamid and Zaid has changed, and the i'rab of Hamid and Zaid has also changed. So now we can see that Hamid is marfu over here, excellent, and Zaid is mansub over here. And when we look at the translation, it says Hamid helped Zaid. Excellent, perfect, yeah. So now we see that the case ending tells us that Hamid is the doer of the action and Zaidan is the receiver of the action. If you remember, we discussed about the meaning of i'rab, and we said that the change in the status of the noun without the change in the meaning is called i'rab. Yes, so the meaning does not change. Hamid remains Hamid, and Zaid remains Zaid. But what happens? The case ending tells us that Hamid is the doer and Zaid is the receiver of the action. So basically, case endings dictate and they tell us who is the doer of the action and who is the receiver of the action. Saada, can it be Saada Hamidan Zaidun? Yes, that's possible. Excellent. It's a very good question. Yeah, it's possible that the receiver of the action, as we call that object or maf'ul bihi, it can come before the doer of the action. It can come, there is a possibility, but then inshallah we will see in detail. Like we have a verse of the Quran, innama yakhshallaha min ibadihi al-ulama'u. So ulama'u is the end, at the end, and yakhshallaha is in the beginning. So there is a possibility that the mansub can come before marfu', but there are some specific cases, and that is for the purpose of emphasis. And inshallah, we will get into that into detail when we start the analysis of the Quran and the analysis of the books. So I hope inshallah Nasara is helped, but Nasara is used for a bigger help. For example, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. So Nasrun is a help that is on a greater scale, on a bigger scale. But Sa'ada yusa'idu is to help like each other or one another in everyday life. Nasrun is used for a bigger help. So now we can see that Hamid is the doer of the action and Zaidan is the receiver of the action. So inshallah, now I can see that that function of the case ending is very, very important. And now we are able to relate, like, why do we need to know the case endings of the nouns? Now the third one, so we have discussed about marfu, mansub, and now as we know, the third one is majroor, which is basically which comes with kasra or kasratan. So majroor is really, really very, very easy to understand. So now we can see here the first part of the sentence, Sa'ada Hamidun Zaidan. Hamid helped Zaid. This is the first part of the sentence. And this is, we can say, this is basically extra information. Sometimes without this information, the sentence can be complete, but sometimes the sentence cannot be complete. So as we know that fi is basically, it's a preposition, and the prepositions are very, very important. For example, if you say, I live, and then you say the name of the country. For example, if you say, I live Saudi Arabia, so the sentence is not complete. It doesn't make sense. But when you say, I live in Saudi Arabia, or I live in Pakistan, or I live in like Hind or any other country, and then you will see that fi changes the meaning and it tells us, and the sentence is complete. So basically, the prepositions are used to complete the sentences or to give the complete meaning of the sentences. So the first part, we know that Hamidun is the doer of the action, is marfu. Zaidan is the receiver of the action, is mansub, and fil mal'abi is in the playground, which is, we can see over here that fi is basically preposition and mal'ab is majroor. Why? Because whenever a noun comes after the preposition, it becomes majroor. If you remember in the previous lesson, we discussed that a noun that comes after the preposition is majroor. And now we can see over here that after the preposition, the noun is majroor. And we can see that it is a preposition and it means in. So the easiest thing to read in Arabic language and the easiest thing to find the case endings is when we talk about the prepositions, because we know that after the preposition, the noun is going to be majroor. It will always be majroor. So the only thing that we need to focus on is to figure out who is the doer and who is the receiver of the action. However, this is restricted only to the verbal sentence. Verbal sentence means a sentence that starts with the verb. As we can see over here, Sa'ada is to help. So it starts with the verbal sentence. Yes, the noun after the preposition will always be majroor. However, the case endings, inshallah, we will discuss in the when we proceed into the lesson. The case endings will differentiate, will be different, but the noun will always be majroor after the harf jar. It's jumlatun fi'liyatun, exactly, because it starts with a verb. Yes, inshallah, we will discuss about types of sentences in the next lesson. So today I would like you to focus only on the case endings and the function of the case endings. Excellent, alhamdulillah. So now here it is a summary over here. So when we say Sa'ada Zaidun Hamidan, can you please translate it quickly in the chat? So Sa'ada Zaidun Hamidan, so it will be, the translation will be, who is the helper, who is the doer of the action, Zaidun, and who is the receiver of the action, that is Hamidan. So it will be Zaid helped Hamid. But when we look at the second sentence, it will be Sa'ada Hamidun Zaidan. Now we can see that the doer has changed, and then similarly, the receiver of the action has also changed. So we can see here that Hamid helped Zaid. And now in this sentence, Hamid is the helper, Zaid is the receiver, and now we can talk about the place where he has been helped, and we know that Hamid helped Zaid in the playground. Fil mal'abi, fil madrasati, fil bayti, fil masjidi. It can be any place where a person can help any other person. Excellent, perfect, yeah. Okay. Now, as we know that always our target is to learn the Quran, and we have to relate it, everything that we're learning, we have to find examples from the Quran. So now look at the example from the Quran, and please tell me about the status of Dawood alayhi salam and the status of Jalut. So we have this verse of the Quran, Surah Baqarah, Qatala Dawudu Jaluta. Excellent. Perfect. So we can see over here that Dawood alayhi salam is the doer of the action, is marfu, and Jalut is the receiver of the action. Action is mansub. And how do we know? From the case endings, we can see that this is marfu and this is mansub. Excellent. So now you can see, you can relate it, like everything that we are learning, you can relate it to the examples of the Quran that we have in the Quran. So this example we can see over here. And we can, when you look at the translation now, Dawood alayhi salam killed Jalut, as we can see in Surah Al-Baqarah. Excellent. Now, so Dawood alayhi salam is the doer of the action and Jalut is the receiver of the action. Now, we have learned that every noun in Arabic has 3 states. What are the 3 states quickly? Marfu'un, mansubun, and majrurun. And it has 3 forms. Okay, so today, inshallah, we will focus on the forms. We have already focused on form number 1, and today we will, inshallah, focus on form number 2 and form number 3. So 3 states, as we have seen, marfu, mansub, and majroor, and 3 forms. Form number 1 is called flexible nouns. In Arabic, it's called munsarifun. Flexible nouns, what does that mean? These nouns have 3 forms in 3 states. So what are the 3 states? We have marfu'un, mansubun, and majrurun. And so they have 3 forms in how many states? In 3 states. Okay, so we can see over here that Muslimun, here it is marfu, and it has a different state. It has dhamma. Musliman is mansubun, and we know that we have to add alif. So here it has a different state. It has fatha. And Muslimin is here. It has a different state and it has kasra, as we can see over here. So Muslimun, Musliman, Muslimin, it has 3 forms in 3 states. Form number 1, dhamma. Form number 2, fatha. And form number 3, kasra. Or you can call it dhammatan, fathatan, and kasratan if you feel comfortable. Then we have al-mu'annathu. So we have again 3 states: marfu, muslimatun, mansub, muslimatan, and majroor, muslimatin. And for your information, so that you don't forget it, when we have ta marbuta, extra alif is not added to that. There's a mistake. We cannot add extra alif to ta marbuta, only to a noun that does not end with ta marbuta. We add alif to that. So muslimatun is here it is marfu with dhamma or dhammatan. Here it is mansub with fatha or fathatan, and here it is majroor with kasra or kasratan. So here 3 forms and 3 states. So what do we call them? We call them munsarif, and for your comfort, I have translated it as flexible nouns. So they are flexible. They can be changed as mansub, majroor, and mansub. Excellent. Now, before we move on to the next 2 forms, let's have an introduction to the prepositions. Like, what are prepositions? As we discussed, it's very important to know about the prepositions, because we have seen that the doer is marfu and the receiver of the action is mansub, and after the preposition the noun is majroor. So we need to know some of the prepositions so that we can move on. So what do we call them? We call them al-huruf al-jarru. Jar. Okay, so the meaning of al-jarru is to drag, as we discussed in the beginning of the lesson, in the previous lesson. In grammatical context, these particles means these huruf al-jar. So you know that in the beginning we learned about the huruf. Those are construction letters. They are used to make words, but these are huruf, but we call them particles because they have their own meaning. Change a noun from nominal case marfu'un to genitive case majrurun. So what they do, they say, okay, you are marfu, fine, but I have got some power. So that's why we call them amil, that I have got some power. And what I will do, I will change your case ending from marfu to majroor. Case ending only, please focus on that. So lafz al-jalala, Allahu, but when we have a preposition before that, li, then the case ending of lafz al-jalala changes into kasra and it becomes lillahi. And we have in the beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So we can see over here that the original case was marfu, it was nominal, but harf jar came, li, and what did it do? It changed the ending from marfu to majroor. Similarly, we have al-Qur'anu. We can see that it is marfu And when we have harf jar before it, fi, and then what happened? The ending changed from anu into ani fil Qur'ani. So now we can see over here it has changed into fil Qur'ani. Four prepositions we can see over here, very common prepositions. There are total 17 prepositions in Arabic language, and 11 of them have been used in the Quran. And from 11, inshallah, you can see that 4 of them we are going to learn by today. So bi means with, or it means in. So as we start with ta'awuz and tasmiyah, so we say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahi. So you can see that after ba, lafz al-jalala becomes majroor, as we can see over here. Okay, and then we have li. Li means for, as we have seen over here. Lillahi, so alhamdulillahi, praise is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ila means to, ila, and ala is with ain, it means on. So these 4 prepositions, please memorize them, write them down. They are very common and they are used a lot in the Quran. Bi is the most commonly used preposition in the Arabic language. So these prepositions are very, very common. So inshallah, now you know that after the preposition, the noun becomes majroor. And the reason why we need to know that, we know that marfu, a noun is the doer of the action, mansub is the receiver of the action, and after the preposition, the noun becomes majroor. So this was a brief introduction to the prepositions, al-huruf al-jar in Arabic, where we have learned about bi, li, ila, and ala. And also we have learned about the first 3 states and the first 3 forms of the noun. And inshallah, when we move on to the next lesson, we will discuss about the next 2 forms of the noun, where the noun will be ghair munsarif, which is partially flexible, and the noun will be fixed, which is mabniyun. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.